Well, Sundowns, led by their coach, Miguel Cardoso, a Champions League winning coach, will be fired up for today because maybe they haven't quite hit the heights that is known for Mamelodi Sundowns, but nonetheless still undefeated at the start of the Betway Premiership season. Of course, we've seen some new faces involved with regards to this team and of course some familiar ones. Ikram Reina starts on the bench today. He'll be hoping for an impact, as is that man, Captain Ronwen Williams, who will start in between the sticks. And of course, when you speak of experience and a combination of youth as well, then that is all about Mamelodi Sundowns and what they bring to the table. When we go to the other side, Coach Phuthi Mohafe maybe under a bit of pressure as the season starts because of that tough defeat in their previous game against Stellenbosch, where they weren't at their best. They were honest and open about that, but they'll hope to get things right today. Of course, when you look at Coach Phuthi Mohafe's record against Sundowns when he was coaching Polokwane City, he was a man who knew how to potentially get a result against this very team. Can he bring that magic dust though? Only time will tell. When you look at the top half of the log standings, Mamelodi Sundowns are 2 games in, are in 7th place with 4 points. Of course, a victory allows them to get to 7 points, which will see them equal with Amazulu, Kaizer Chiefs, as well as Orlando Pirates. Marumo Gallants, I did make mention a short while ago, a bit of a slow start to the season for them, but it's still early days. A solitary point in the bag, and they'll be hoping for more today. Greetings everyone who is tuning in for what should be a fantastic game here at Loftus Versfeld. I'm not alone as we build up to this contest. Stanton Fredericks as well as Bongani Khumalo are alongside me. Stanton, good to be in Pretoria, good to be at Loftus. I know they've been playing at Lucas Moripe in the early parts of the season, but we're back here and it looks like a nice surface at the moment.
Yeah, good evening, Fiso. It looks in excellent condition. Remember, this Loftus Versfeld field is a hybrid field. It's 50% artificial, 50% real grass. And yes, they did allow it to grow a bit, but we can see that just before we walked on here, myself and Bongs, is that they wet it. It is very wet, but it needs to be wet because if the grass is thick, it then slows the ball down. The last thing the home team Sundowns would want is that ball to be slow, so they need this greasy pitch to be effective. I'm looking to my right. It doesn't look like the Brains Trust, the people in charge at Sundowns, are necessarily too happy with the length of this particular grass. It looks really nice as it is, but maybe Bongani, could it have been a bit shorter? Do you agree with what? I mean, again, I'm speculating, but it does look like there's a conversation around that happening to my right.
No, 100%. I think for really, technically gifted sides, they prefer it to be a little bit thin, because obviously the thinner it is, and if it's wet, it's a lot slicker. So therefore, it's sort of less effort to move the ball around, and also, your touch has to be sensitive. And if you're an away team, and your touch is not 100% correct, that's where you have the advantage. Obviously, it's a highly technical side. So the thickness does slow it down a little bit, but the wet obviously just evens it out a little bit. But 100% they would have preferred it to be a lot more thinner. Okay, let's speak about Sundowns and how they've started the season. Stiga, two games in, they've got the draw, they've got a victory, but they haven't seemed to be firing at full tilt. It's still early in the season though.
Well, I think no loss. I think that's the positive they can take, but interestingly enough, in the beginning, we can see that there's a lot of rotation. This is just the 3rd game, and there's a lot of rotation, And you can see we're coming up against Kaizer Chiefs here, a little bit vulnerable, coming out of defense. They're conceding early, but the experience that they have, they do not press the panic buttons, Bongs. They get back into the game. They don't immediately try and get the equalizer. Yeah. So that experience is going to be massive when they're competing on all fronts this season.
One thing that they won't want, Bongani, is for teams to be able to penetrate through the middle like that, but they'll want a bit of this, a bit of bravery and tenacity in the box.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite incredible, Not the biggest man on the pitch, but he remained honest. Because one thing about if the ball's floating in the box, something is coming. A truck is about to hit you. And for you to hold your concentration, make sure you get something on it to get the goal, it's a lot of bravery that's needed in that area.
Yeah, look, I can tell you for free that it's going to be a very tough game here because Marumo Gallants, they're hurting. Coach was very, very specific in that last game against Stellenbosch, saying not good enough. But he did say to me after that game that he was happier with the last 20-30 minutes of that game.
Yeah, well, firstly, you got to understand Phuthi Mohafe will set his side up to be very defensively sound. They'll be a very fit side. They'll be able to compete in terms of intensity. 90 minutes plus, you know. But the worrying factor is here, and Bongs will pick this out immediately, that the defense just looked very disjointed. Brilliant hat-trick, have to mention, from Plaatjes, the youngster making his debut for Stellis.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we were with Gavin, you know, in another sport, playing golf, he spoke about a player. And, you know, obviously we're off screen now, but, you know, when you sort of do a snake gesture with your hand to show, hey, I've got a player that does that,
Yeah.
you know, that's when you know you got some talent. So I think that's him. Because the one thing, Gavin does not give a lot of compliments. When he says, I've got a player that does this, and a player starts with a hat-trick, I'm assuming it's Plaatjes, right? But wonderful start, and again, I do agree with you. Marumo Gallants really need to have their wits about them in terms of just positioning, defensive principles. Coach Putimaf has got a lot of work to do with these lot.
I have to come back to you, Bongani, because I look at it from a defensive point of view. A lot of those goals, either someone's free in the box or maybe defenders the wrong side. How quickly can they get that right?
Unfortunately, you know, ideally these are things that are taught way before you get to this level. But obviously, as a coach, a manager, you need to work with what you have, and you need to coach what you have accordingly in terms of the skill set that's available. And I think Marumo Gallants have had that. If you look at their past 2 games, a newly promoted side, you get a draw. You play against PSL team, you lose. Now you got Sundowns. So Coach Putimaf will really know what he has for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and what Coach Putimaf will do is he'll have to rely on his experienced players, Bongs. You're looking at Edgar Manaka, you're looking at Ndlondo as well, even Bambaniso that would be starting on the bench today. So you tap into the experienced players, and their work effort, their understanding of the tactics, and they now need to relate to the new players or the players that's not that experienced, you know. So that is what the coach and assistant coach Misambulukulu is going to need to do. Tap into that experienced players so that we can get our game model without thinking as quick as possible.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the record overall between these teams, it doesn't make for good reading for Marumo. But there has been games where they've put up a fight. We saw at the end of last season, they were able to get a bit of a scrap, but they end up losing that game. Yep. But they're a side that when they are on their day, they can cause a few problems, even though those numbers don't necessarily reflect that.
Agreed. You know, they can cause headaches. And look, ultimately, this is the 3rd game, 2 games, 1 point. Obviously, you know, a terrible defeat, but remember, they survived by 1 point. So Marumo Gallants is one of those sides where every single point will be like gold to them. So regardless of what the stats look like on the day, whatever they can get, it's important that they put in an effort in order to at least get a point out of it.
And today they're going to have to play differently, because against Kruger United, against Stellenbosch, they had the bulk of the possession. When you come up against Mamelodi Sundowns, you are not going to enjoy the bulk of the possession. So Putimaf will have to make them understand early on that this is the way we're going to have to approach this game. We're going to have to hurt ourselves. And I think when Putimaf, I mentioned this, when he sets up a side, it is defensively sound. So today, his strength needs to come and show his hand on his side today.
Yeah, the one thing that will be quite interesting is that battle between the Brains Trust. Of course, Miguel Cardoso, we know, as I said earlier on, a Champions League winning coach, but he'll want the big one. He'll want this league. And if they are to do that, they need 3 points today. Now, let's go here from the man from Portugal, Miguel Cardoso. Coach Miguel, Marumo Gallants today, another task ahead for your team. How do you look at them as a team, especially with the, I guess,